going, team. Thanksgiving. Aren't we happy? Aren't we thankful? Right? We're thankful the sun is up. We're thankful Bitcoin is still running. We're thankful for a coffee. We can have a sip and talk about the news. So, a bridged episode today. We're going to be preparing to host a few people, not too many, because a lot of my family's Canadian, just across the border. We're in the United States right now, in Vermont, where it is Thanksgiving. But my Canadian family doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving on this day. They have their Thanksgiving in October. To understand a bit of the difference between Canadian and American Thanksgiving, our Thanksgiving in Canada is a little bit more like a homecoming situation. It's often the first time people come home from college at the beginning of October. It's nowhere near the holiday that is in the United States. For foreigners who don't know, this is the largest holiday in the United States, more than even Christmas. And this holiday in particular is all about the harvest. It's all about giving thanks. Now, one thing I've noticed, and I think it's true, it's unreal. Especially, we're going to be talking all about the media changes today, Twitter, New York Times, Semaphore, all that kind of stuff. Everything, all the frame that Bitcoiners are getting from this big change in media, especially SBF coverage. But what I've noticed now is that if you just watch a bit of mainstream news, I speak on this show regularly how I watch CNN for the laughs. Well, CNN's become a little less funny because they're actually looking like they're trying to keep the news pretty straight these days. It looks like they are trying to revert to being a news source, and they've taken out a lot of the fun and humor, but good thing there are other people out there. And I made an observation. You can almost diagnose mental illness now directly from watching mainstream media. You can diagnose a certain type of mental illness from watching mainstream media. So here's a case, right? We've got Joy Reid. So if you don't know Joy Reid, she's on MSNBC, and she's a really big partisan, right? Really big partisan. We brought her up here a few times. She's the one who said during the elections, if you remember, we covered it heavily, that Republicans invented the word inflation in order to trick people, in order to get them angry about the economy to vote Republican, right? So she's that in the bag, right? That inflation is a made-up partisan word. And I think her exact quote is, I never heard of that word before now. I never heard about inflation until now. And people wouldn't talk about that. Well, I mean, that's the issue with the US dollar. When you enjoy the qualities that the US dollar has as the global reserve currency, well, you don't have to bother with inflation. You offshore inflation, in fact. Other countries' monetary policies are engaged so that you don't notice it as much. That's how things remain cheap in America. That's how our credit became such a used facility in order to buy all the stuff made in China and these places. So Joy Reid, a few weeks ago saying totally made up. Well, here's another made up thing she says. It's totally made up. She says that Republicans' love of Thanksgiving is a simplistic fairy tale because Republicans need it to erase some history stuff and all that. So imagine, this is what I mean about mental illness just being on display. Imagine, it's just a holiday. The point of the holiday is to give thanks. Now, it's true in the past, there was some issues with natives and people say, oh, what happened? And there was some genocide. A lot of the stuff that American colonists did to Native Americans was not cool, right? Now, we can admit that there was a lot of trouble within the native communities when Europeans arrived. It wasn't all puppy dogs and ice cream, by the way. Where we are located right here, this was an Abenaki territory. So the Algonquin ran this. Well, what happened to them? Well, the Mohawk, who are just in the better farming land, the St. Lawrence Champlain Valley, killed them all. They just killed them all, right? When they were given guns, they were much more warlike. The reason the Abenaki were even out here in the first place is because the land isn't as good. Right? It's not as good as the land around Montreal and everything down into the Great Lakes. So the Mohawk, actually, the Iroquois, controlled everything from the Great Lakes and still do. They still have territory there. They were never pushed to the west like in America and Canada. It's very different in the United States as far as Native Americans are concerned. Many more of the local populations are here. Assalamu alaikum, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, Muslim Bitcoiner. Assalamu alaikum. I got to get it better, man. I got to do better. I keep saying it, but I got to do better. I'll get it. Have patience. I will get it. I'll watch some World Cup over the weekend, and it will remind me. I've just been too busy. I literally haven't even done what I said I would do, which is go and listen to the pronunciation properly and then be able to copy it. So I've been too busy for even that. You know, we got kids and running around and all this SBF stuff and FTX and what's going on. So it's kept me real busy. And, you know, even on our programming front for the event, now that SBF's got his own competing event in a couple of days, right, we have to be very clear that our event does not allow scammers. We're going to talk about that today. SBF headlining an event, headlining. So Joy Reid here goes out and says it's a simplistic fairy tale, right? That thankfulness and Thanksgiving is a Republican front, I guess. That's her point. It's a Republican front, just like inflation was a Republican front. And so Joy Reid going at it. So like I said, you can actually now just see mental illness. Like it's piercing through the veil, right? Anyone who would have a problem with being thankful on today and would have to bring history and context and racial context and all these things, look, forget it. We get a lot of amazing stuff in America. And for us to take one day to just be thankful and then to have a problem with that, right? That's what's missing from the world. Thankfulness, appreciation for little things, right? Just little things. That's kind of what's missing, right? So there you go. The funniest stuff I've seen, though, on this mental illness thing. So something I want to do on this show all the time is protect you from NPCs, right? This audience needs protection from non-playable characters. So how do we get protection from NPCs? Well, we know how to diagnose them and recognize them first, right? There are ways you can recognize an NPC. And Michael Malice, who we bring up a lot here, came up with one of the best tests, right? One of the best tests I can think of. So he was arguing with people and, you know, what's going on and politics and blah, blah, blah. And someone came out and said, comparing Michael Malice. So Michael Malice is sort of in the Fetterman camp like I am, right? I don't know if he's as deep into John Fetterman 2024 as I am, and as hopeful that John Fetterman can actually be the Democrat candidate for president. And I think, once again, no joke, I think it'll work. I think Democrats have divorced themselves from the need of a powerful leader. As long as the policy options are there, they're good to go, which is a fair choice. I mean, I'm okay with that, actually, right? Really, I'm okay with that. I kind of prefer the show of the personalities and the chaos on the Republican side. I like all these egos and everyone clashing. It's kind of cool, you know, to see Kanye and Trump and everything that's going to go on there. You know, Kanye visited Trump yesterday at Mar-a-Lago, by the way. He tweeted about it. So we're going to see what's going on there, asking to be his running mate. I actually think that would be great. Kanye president, Trump vice president, right? Trump gets to have his personal vendettas, has a very low obligation job afterwards, right? He can step in case something does happen to Kanye because he's done the job before. He has it on his resume. You know, not a lot of vice presidents have previous president on their resume. I think it's perfect, right? I don't think it's going to work out, but I would love to see Trump run as VP this time, honestly, at the bottom of the ticket. Then I could support it, right? Then I wouldn't worry too much about his last day or Assange and all that stuff. Now, there's a few other policies I want to see. I want to see definitely a much better. I definitely want to see a much better fentanyl plan from all of these candidates. And here's another good one that rose to my attention yesterday. Now, I don't think he's going to be as powerful around education as Kanye, because Kanye had his own school and has been thinking about education abroad. But Mike Pompeo, believe it or not, Mike Pompeo yesterday said that Randy Weirgarden, who we're going to talk about today as well, the head of the teachers union, is the most dangerous person in the world. He said that. He said she's the most dangerous person in the world. I agree. The head of the American Teachers Union, who has a great amount of responsibility for the future education of Americans, if she screws up, which she's absolutely doing, she could be responsible and could be the most dangerous person in the world if you see it in that context. We're going to talk about it in the show as we go on. Let me get back to the NPC diagnosis. So Fetterman, this guy Micah T, tells Michael Malice, Fetterman has a graduate degree from Harvard. What have you achieved, shitwit? Right? So first of all, Michael Malice's response to that was, I can successfully read a sentence out loud. That's pretty good, right? He can successfully read a sentence out loud. Remember, he's the same guy I mentioned yesterday who thanked that politician who was virtue signaling about campaigning with diabetes. And he said, thanks for running while you still have feet. So here he is promoting Fetterman, and this person says, you know, Fetterman has a degree from Harvard. What have you done? So here it is. And I think this is the actual diagnosis. If a person mentions a Ivy League degree or any college degree in their list of achievements and what they did, therefore they're better than you, or even putting it after the name. Here's the diagnosis. Here's the net to catch NPCs. What he says is, to an NPC, a degree after a name is like a laugh track after a joke. Instructions on how to feel. You know, the laugh track, you know, ha, 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 when you hear these bad TV shows and it prompted you to laugh, that's what it is, right? It's like literally a laugh track. Here I am, Harvard grad, ha, 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 right? It's telling you how to feel after the fact. So there you go. There's another way to diagnose NPCs. Basically, anyone who tries to put a point on an argument by saying they have a degree in whatever, right? Now, I have a law degree, I have a political science degree, I have an English literature degree, I have a science degree, I got all kinds of degrees, right? Do I go around telling people in order to win an argument that I got a degree in this or that or whatever, right? It might get brought up as a side note, right? But that's about it, right? That's about it. So there you go. All right, so let's talk about media now. I chose this idea because it, you know, I've mentioned it a few times on the show, and I remember I said the boards are going to not be as sophisticated because of some other stuff going on with more content than I'm producing with Bitcoin Magazine. So I'm trying to reduce a bit of the complexity in the board, but I thought this was a quick, easy one to put up. It's that old rap line that gets repeated all the time, right? I got my mind on my money and my money on my mind, right? Well, you can actually apply it to the way the media works and just the way the human mind is coordinated on dollars versus coordinated on Bitcoin. So that's the point of this show. We're talking about the breakup. We're talking about coordination of thoughts, coordination of intellect, and what it means. And I continue to make the contrast that a coordinated mind, a mind coordinated by the Bitcoin standard, can see the field much more openly. Whereas a mind that is sort of put upon by US dollar considerations and all of the amount of stuff you have to swallow before you can even make a synthetic thought and come up with an original idea actually inhibits you, right? So the money is literally on top of your mind versus your mind on top of your money, right? I think it's a nice, neat, tidy package to explain the difference, right? The suppression of thought, the weight carried by all the assumptions that come with the fiat world that you don't even realize are there, right? Actually inhibits the mind and makes the mind much weaker. Whereas if the human mind is able to rest atop a countable asset like Bitcoin, where you can actually gauge what's going on in the world with a much better degree of accuracy and insight and even just vivid detail, right? You can get to see who the players on the stage are. You're much more apt to make smart decisions and to really have an honest view of the field versus the opposite. And I'll explain what's going on. So first of all, let's talk quickly about all the stuff that's going on Twitter, because it'll help give us context. So first of all, Styx, Hex, and Hammer 666, who we should all follow, by the way. Styx, Hex, and Hammer 666. If anyone didn't know, he started out as an occult, I think satanic. I think he was even a part of the Church of Satan, originally on YouTube, but that was way a long time ago, like so long ago, right? He's from Vermont here as well, and had an awakening, an epiphany, still follows occult stuff in a way, but has become much more, let's say much more, I wouldn't say deistic or much more interested in Jesus, nothing like that. But he's definitely not a Satanist or anything like that any longer, and is really known now as an excellent political commentator. And he is one of my favorites. He does daily YouTube videos, about 10 minutes a pop, really great presentation. He's on all the platforms, big Bitcoiner, so have a look. So here's what he says. This is just a simple observation. He goes, since Elon bought Twitter, the site has become much better. No more shadow ban on my account. Multiple creators are restored, and there's plenty of drama to harvest salt from. I've noticed the same. Lots of great stuff to harvest for our content here for this show. So that's one of the first observations, right? So he's saying it's much better, and it's true that, you know, all the numbers that Elon has shared with us anyway shows engagement is way up. Users are at an all-time high. The amount of traction the site is getting is at an all-time high. These things all look real great. So, you know, he's focusing on the child exploitation. not understanding why any of that was a problem before. Ramsey Paul says Twitter is reportedly nuking the pedo accounts, and it's eliminating much of Antifa Twitter. I didn't know that there would be an overlap. Elon responded to that. Removing child exploitation is priority number one. Please reply in comments if you see anything that Twitter needs to address. Andy No, who I'm also quite a large fan of, Andy No comes and says, a large number of Antifa accounts operate on Twitter to promote riots, give tips on how to commit violent crimes, and post names, photos, and addresses and targets of their family members. Andy No has been attacked by these folks a couple times. JW, morning all. Thankful for this show, putting news to the correct lines. Thank you, JW. That's what we're trying to do here. The whole point of this show is to put a frame on the news that makes sense to Bitcoiners, because if we didn't have a frame on the news, it would all just look like anxiety-inducing gibberish, right? So that's what we're trying to do here. So, Andy No involved in this as well. We're big fans of Andy No. He's been targeted by Antifa a few times, so he would know a lot about it because he's got to be very mindful, right? Bud Perry says, yes, Bitcoin is our lens. Exactly, right? Our lens here is Bitcoin. We're trying to put all the news through a Bitcoin lens to make it make sense, right? Eric Weinstein, who I've interviewed on Bitcoin before, believe it or not, Eric Weinstein and I make the argument that we shut down Broadway. I interviewed him on Bitcoin in 2019, just before the COVID thing started and shut Broadway down altogether. And Eric Weinstein and I discussed Bitcoin in the context of Ter de Meester's Dutch Revolution essay that he had just written at the time in 2019, and it was a great talk, and it's out there somewhere. You should all go check it out if you can find it. I think one of the podcasts, one of the Bitcoin podcasts, used the audio of it for their episode that week, but I can't remember which one. It was a good chat. So here he is talking about shadow banning and how he suffered from it and what it meant, right? And now Elon comes in and discusses how partisan the shadow banning was in the previous administration at Twitter, right? Because there was a lot of debate over all those years that it was heavily focused on more Republican, right-wing, conservative views and left a lot of progressive views untouched. So, but no one had the details. No one knew the truth. So you didn't want to be you didn't want to use confirmation bias. You didn't want to believe it to be true, and you had to keep an open mind whether or not it was true, because it was too easy to believe that it was happening, that conservatives were getting targeted. So I often looked at David Pakman, noticed that he was also getting suppressed from time to time. So, but there were very few examples of left-wing folks. I never came out and said it, actually. I never came out and said they were absolutely suppressing us. I did my best to look at the whole field to see who else was getting suppressed. Not that I didn't believe it, but I had no proof, right? There was just no proof. There was no way to actually say it other than it sounded true and it was easy to believe. So whenever it sounds true and easy to believe, you really do have to question things, right? Because that's confirmation bias, and you have to always be careful with that. But it turns out we were right. So what Elon ends up saying is, it has been really bad. Far left San Francisco, Berkeley views have been propagated to the world via Twitter. I'm sure this comes as no surprise to anyone watching closely. Twitter is moving rapidly to establish an even playing field, no more thumb on the scale. So what he's talking about there is that it was really true, that they were actually shadow banning conservative voices regularly, right? Which we didn't know. So Cernovich gives advice on how to get through all this, and he says, fully searchable email archive of all media inquiries to the Trust and Stasi Council, along with government takedown requests, would be a great contribution to scholarship and transparency. So Cernovich continuing to give advice to Elon Musk. You know what I believe? He's talked about this group of people he wants to get together to be on the censorship, whatever thing that he's going to put together at Twitter. I think Cerno would be great on that. But I think once Elon gets Twitter running and can't really serve as CEO anymore, I honestly believe Cerno would be the best CEO possible for Twitter. That's just what I feel. I don't think he has any experience, but I think he would be great, right? I just do. I think he would be great. So there he is talking about all this. Now, all this, and just again, like what I continue to marvel at is watching the governance of Twitter, the C-suite activity of the CEO getting advice happening in real time on Twitter is, enough of a show for us to all have a lot of optimism for what's happening in media, because even if Twitter fails, you're actually seeing a CEO behave in ways that we've never seen before, that are really responsive and look really conducive to a good media environment. So that I continue to be really, really happy about. Now, let's contrast that. So Elon is also in the news today for another reason. And well, he's in for a bunch of reasons, but let's just take this one too, right? Muslim Bitcoiner says, Musk needs to enable BTC Lightning payments in Twitter. Yeah, absolutely. But we're going to keep pausing that, because it looks like he's trying to get the political stuff out of the way before he adds those technical functionalities. I think he's going to do it. I do. I think he's going to do it. But let's just wait and see. So what's going on here is, and now I've got to make an admission, not an admission, but an update. So I mentioned a few weeks ago, sort of at the start of the show, or over a month ago anyway, that this new media outlet Semafor was worth watching, because I was getting a couple of stories from them. Semafor, Semafor, and I thought interesting, right? So it turns out Semafor wrote a big tell-all yesterday, scoop, that Elon had taken money from SBF to buy Twitter, right? Or hadn't necessarily, and even though he said he didn't, it wasn't actually truthful, and at one point there was some kind of deal or something was going on, but nobody knows. None of it is actually in the article, right? I've read the whole article. I can't even explain where they say he took the money, right? They say there was some issue of rolling 100 million stake into Twitter, that SBF could do that, but who knows, right? In the end, there is no indication anywhere in this article that money came. The title was SBF, Elon Musk, and a secret text. Secret text. It's just another text. It's not a secret text. Does Elon share all of his texts? No, of course not. So it came up at one point that they texted back and forth when Elon was trying to gather the money, raise the money back in the spring to buy Twitter. When he first put the bid forward, SBF said, I want to be involved, and they talked a bit about money. In the end, there's any indication whatsoever that actual money went across. Musk looks like he's still in the truth, right? Still being honest. But here's what Kara Swisher. She is a New York Times tech writer who I've booked for shows before, and found her to be, well, I don't want to get into the personal stuff. I've met her before. We don't need to get into the personal stuff. That's all just prejudices, my own prejudices about attitude and body language, let's say. So we'll not bother. So the Semafor article gives all kinds of details about what happened, but it's all fluff. There's no real point here. They had some text messages, and Semafor saw them and made a scoop out of it, right? Great. So they one thing I do like about the Semafor format is they give the story, then they give the author's take, right? They give the actual writer's take. But here's the thing. 99% of fake news is actually just mind reading, right? They mind read the person they're writing about. Somehow everyone who writes for fake news is a mind reader, I guess. They're all good at it, right? So, I'll finish that and then I'll get back to the Kara Swisher part. So this is the writer, Liz. I don't know her full name. Liz says, Musk finally tuned BS meter, sort of knew what Bankman-Fried was up to. The money didn't go through, whatever. And then she says, corporate mergers were once hammered out in boardrooms and papered over by an army of bankers and lawyers. But with wealth now concentrated in the hands of an elite few, individuals can act like companies all on their own. Musk acquired Twitter through sheer force of personality, ambition, hubris, and a refusal to negotiate, and bent Wall Street to his will, to the regret of both. Look at the mind reading here, right? That she understands why Musk did it, that he didn't hire a bunch of lawyers to go over the details for the merger like they would have in the 80s. All of this proves somehow that it was his ambition and hubris and his refusal to negotiate, right, that made the deal go the way it did. So they introduce an article sort of talking about how billionaires texted each other about buying another company. And then that turned into, it's his hubris and refusal to negotiate and his ambition, right? How does she know? What if he was just trying to save humanity so that he could keep launching rockets because he saw the chaos that was going on Twitter with all the suppression that we just talked about, right? So Liz not paying any attention here, right? You know, all these notes now that a bunch of people in the industry are people in the Bitcoin industry are sharing, saying pay attention, right? You're seeing that everywhere. Pay attention when you see the media lying now, because this has been one of the biggest orange pill events in the history of the world to watch the media fail and flounder like this, right? And you hear everyone saying pay attention, right? So this is another one of those pay attention. Liz not paying attention. But here's what Kara Swisher again. So Kara Swisher, New York Times writer, retweeted this article and said, of course Elon took the money and then dunked on SBF. There's no indication in the article that he took the money at all. Nothing like that happened, right? They had a text about money and then it never happened, is what the article says. I read it. I have the copy of it here. It's nowhere in the words did they talk about taking money, right? Of course, Elon took the money and then dunked on SBF because it is all a game that you are all supposed to see. Sam Bankman-Fried, Elon, and a secret text. Okay. Elon jumps in and responds to Kara Swisher and says, there was a time when you cared about the truth. That is long gone. And that's true, right? There is a time when you cared about the truth, and that's long gone, because she never mentions it here, but her outlet, the New York Times, is hosting a show in a few days, November 30th. I might go. I might head down to New York City for this, with the keynote being SBF. He's going to get interviewed by Andrew Ross Sorkin. I've been interviewed by Andrew Ross Sorkin many times about Bitcoin. Not a smart guy, by the way. Not a smart guy. And here they are interviewing Sam Bankman-Fried. You should see this murderer's row of crooks and criminals on this event for New York Times. It's the CEO of TikTok, right? He's a great guy. People are only talking about how TikTok is actually a weapon of mass destruction, right? It's not just a privacy thing. It's Senator Tom Cotton even finally properly gauged the threat of TikTok in mainstream media and on Twitter. Didn't point out this diversion, that it is a data security thing. It's not a data security problem. It's a brainwashing problem. It's an influence problem, right? That's the problem with TikTok. Forget about it being data security. Who gives a shit? You can actually propagandize anything you want if you're China. So Stephen here, one of the worst propagandists we have. And he's next to Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, right? He's out there pushing ESG again, and he's going to be on stage with his primo ESG salesperson, SBF. He'll be there. So it's, Janet Yellen is at the event. She's great, right? We love Janet Yellen. We got Vladimir Zelensky from Ukraine, right? So they could probably launder the money right at the event. They're probably just getting together to launder some money physically because they're there, right? They can just go do it. Now, we all thought that they would change the website, SBF would get taken down, but Andrew Ross Sorkin and SBF confirm November 30th. He will be in New York City discussing the future of probably Bitcoin, crypto, whatever they fucking want to talk about, right? Who cares? Zuckerberg is going to be there. It's going to be a good event. I gotta go. It's going to compete with our event, it looks like, right? We're not going to have SBF in our event in Miami, by the way. We're not going to have any of these speakers. We're not going to have TikTok, Larry Fink, Janet Yellen. I'll invite Janet Yellen. We can put the Bitcoin sign. I did that. I did another. This was a fun thing. The other Fed chair, James Bullard. James Bullard. I had him as one of my keynotes in 2018 at a show. And the Launderfest deck says, yeah, it sounds like a fundraiser to me. Says, yeah, it does. It really does sound like a fundraiser, a Ukraine money laundering fundraiser. What was I saying? I had, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I had James Bullard at an event as a keynote years ago. He actually gave a great talk, by the way. James Bullard, the St. Louis Fed president. So he's one of the presidents of the Fed Reserve System. Now, to criticize him, he has only ever been an academic economist. So that's what regularly people say against him for the reasons for which he's an idiot. That he's never had a real job, that he's another one of these academic economists. That all might be true. I have very little experience in what James Bullard does. I looked into him before I booked him as a keynote, thought he was interesting, and he gave a really interesting speech in 2018. He admitted the truth that Bitcoin had broken the monopoly on the creation of money, and wasn't there to say to pass any judgment on it, but he did give us a historical context for why fiat money was created in the first place because of this private issuance, right? It was actually pretty interesting. I would recommend anyone go back and watch it. It really was just what were the forces that brought the privacy, the monopoly of the creation of money into place in America, like what did it? And he talked about the negative forces of the private issuance of money, which you had in the wildcat banks and all the chaos of the late 1800s in America. So he did definitely make a pretty coherent argument and didn't pass judgment one way or the other. He just said we've left that era. Bitcoin has brought in a new era of the now private issuance, so no longer monopolistic issuance, but anyone can issue money again. And he just dealt with the reality of it. So it was a great talk. But of course, this was not long after the Bitcoin sign guy had come, and I actually recopied the Bitcoin sign paper. And people were, I had the moderator put it up on. What do you think about this? And put it up while he was on stage. It was fun. People laughed. There is a picture out there of Jim Bullard saying, "I don't like that. I don't like that sign. It wasn't that funny." You gotta have fun when he produced these shows, right? He never came back after that. That was the one time. I don't think he appreciated that. Where on YouTube is Bullard's speech? I don't know if it's on YouTube. You'd have to check CoinDesk. It was Consensus Keynote 2018. Consensus Keynote 2018. Would have been a morning keynote. I interviewed in the afternoon stage. The afternoon keynote. I interviewed Whitfield Diffie that day, as well as Zuko. And the following day, I interviewed Jesse Powell and Eric Voorhees. So it'll be in all those. There's a lot of. It was a really good event, by the way. It was a really good event. 2018, sort of top of the last run, just before. Well, things had already started to crash, but we were still living on the fumes. So wild event. I mean, totally wild, right? That's the one where Arthur got in a lot of trouble. Where I continue to believe Arthur Hayes, with what he did there, set himself up to get arrested, basically. When I made the contrast yesterday between SBF and he and what SBF did in 2020 and all the stuff that was going on then, that was the one where Arthur hired actors to protest outside of our event and complained that we were stealing all the bankers' jobs. And the fake news bought it. They thought it was real. They didn't understand it was a publicity stunt. And everyone thought I did it, right? So everyone was like, Nolan, you're a genius. That was hilarious. Because it made global news. Like, it went all around the world, right? Everyone picked it up. And I was like, yeah, I took credit for it, but I know who really did it. It was Arthur. I took credit because it was just like literally everyone thought it was the funniest thing. And everyone just, knew that I produced the show and figured that I was doing that. What would your focus be if BTC did not exist? What's your escape velocity? Let me finish the thought and I'll answer your question, Muslim Bitcoiner. I just want to tie the loop here on our story about Semaphore. So the Semaphore thing happens, and here's the thing. Semaphore. Right, I mentioned the Semaphore thing. They write this hit piece yesterday on SBF and Elon. Meanwhile, SBF is going to be a keynote at a show, right? He's going to go be a keynote at a show. Well, it turns out Semaphore is also owned and funded by SBF, obviously, right? I didn't know that the first time I ever mentioned Semaphore. I liked the format. I was going to give it a chance. I could see it was full of liberal, libtards. So I was not that, positive about it, but I liked the attempt. Did not know SBF was involved. So it turns out now that Semaphore won't give the money back. So New York Post had a whole article the same day. So the same day that they're criticizing on Semaphore Elon Musk for texting with SBF about taking money, right? So this is Semaphore writing a hit piece about Elon maybe taking money from SBF, but didn't. But they had texts about it, so that's the big story, right? Oh, Elon didn't do it. And then again, remember her thing, it's all ambition and hubris. right? The art of Liz, right? Ambition, hubris, and the refusal to negotiate, right? That's the story here. Well, Semaphore, according to New York Post yesterday, Semaphore, a news site launched last month after getting a large infusion of cash from disgraced FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried, has come under fire for staying mum about whether it will turn the now bankrupt crypto firm's money. Sam Bankman-Fried was reportedly an initial investor in the $25 million raised by Semaphore's founders. Former Bloomberg Media CEO Justin Smith and former New York Times media and columnist and BuzzFeed editor-in-chief Ben Smith. So Ben Smith and these guys who are just running hit piece after hit piece these days, right? Liars, right? Liars. So they will not give the money back, it looks like. So that's what we got going on. And I think that's where we're headed, right? Now that people can't really tell, when we look at the events, we look at Semaphore, right? These people are all being directed by their money. It's clear. It couldn't be more clear, right? Their money literally puts blinders on them, doesn't allow them to see themselves in the world in any context, right? They think their context is reality and that what they say just fits perfectly into reality. But it doesn't, right? It doesn't, because Bitcoiners now know how to count. We know how to count. It's a major difference. It's a revolution. We can count. And in fact, it actually just allows our brains to have a lot wider range of field. We can see the whole field of play as Bitcoiners because our minds literally aren't dampened by the pressure of the dollar and all the assumptions that come with the fiat system. Because you got to believe in university degrees, you got to believe in the New York Times, you got to believe in Semaphore, that somehow SBF's money was cleaned, right? It was better because it went to Semaphore and their university degrees, but it was bad, right? It was bad on Twitter, right? So there you go. And Hyper Bitcoinization podcast says it clears the confusion. That's exactly what it does, right? It's all about clearing the confusion. And to me, this is very confusing, right? It's literally like a weight on your brain, and a weight that is so large. And that's how we look. It's Thanksgiving. You're probably gonna be around family today. We gotta have empathy for these people, right? This is like having a major anchor that just falls inside of your skull and literally pulls your brain oozing down into your ass. It's not good, right? We gotta help these people. There's no other way. Now, that doesn't mean fight them, confront them, but it does mean finding a way to get them out of their shell. And that's why whenever someone says, oh, how's the Bitcoin thing? I said, well, look, it's just proving that the media is broken. It's proving that finance is broken and a lot of broken things. Energy is broken. And then I always put the last one, but it's a good thing. It's just great that our elections are the one system in America that made it through this. I mean, they made it through. Look at Arizona. It made it through. They're still counting the votes. They haven't finished counting. It's been 2 weeks and a bit, and there's still some races that are undeclared, but it looks like it's working. Right? So let's do it, Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, guys. So, let me, Muslim Bitcoiner, I'll answer your question. What would your focus be if Bitcoin did not exist? Honestly, I don't know. That's the scariest thought to me. I think I would be, maybe, what's going on there? I think I would be, what pains me is that I would be one of these like libertarian people, you gotta, despair, maybe thinking you could get it done through politics, right? I think, but the problem there is that I'd already given up on politics as a conduit to change when I found Bitcoin. Like it was already happening simultaneous. Like I was like, this doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. We're not getting anywhere. I had been a part of I still believe that the Canadian political situation that I entered in 2005, 2006, where we had a kind of a populist revolution at the time, and one power, despite all of the headwinds, despite all of the in the bag media, despite all of the, everything you live in America right now, we were experiencing it before in Canada for quite a while. We had the public broadcaster. They're so fancy. They have so many degrees. They're so smart. We have something in Canada called the Laurentian elite. I'm one of them, so I know them, right? It's like a Trump thing, right? I know these people. Now, wasn't born into that world, but Canada is pretty accessible. Canada has a lot of upward mobility. I'll never criticize Canada for that, right? Canada has an incredible amount of upward mobility. And a lot of my things I like about left-wing thought, I don't mean politics, I mean some of the goals they have about education, I saw them manifested in Quebec, and it was really good, right? Quebec's education system is awesome. I mean, really good for a lot of, I don't think it's still good. I think some of the rot, the normal rot has set in, but I'll always appreciate the social programs are the wrong way. The social focus that Quebec had that helped me grow, right? Because I don't think I would have been able to do as many things in life that I did if it wasn't for the excellent education base I got from Quebec. So I don't want to ignore that, and I will never, right? I think, for example, reparations in America, right? I believe in reparations in America. What I don't believe in is just paying Black people cash that came out of the tax, whatever. Right? That's not what I'm talking about. That you would tax an immigrant to America, and then they would have to pay money to African Americans. But here's what I have in mind. I think you could take the Quebec education system, and here's how it works. We finish high school. We don't have junior high. We use elementary school, high school. High school is grade 7 to grade 11. This is not the Canadian system either. Ours in Quebec is even better. So we do, the normal whatever until high school. High school starts in grade 7. Grade 7 to grade 11 is our entire high school experience. Grade 12, so when we're 17, we go to junior college, and the junior college is free. And the junior college is actually harder than normal college. You have to take a 7-course minimum agenda, right? You have a major, you have 7 courses, 3 out of your major, 4 out of general. And all of it combines the 2 year, and you do junior college for 2 years. Connected to the junior colleges are also free professional colleges, which are 3-year degrees. And that's like medical technicians, anything that requires skills, plumbing, whatever. You all go to the same school. If you're in a general program, which is 2 years, not the technical, which are 3, if you're in a general for 2, it's to go to college after, like normal paid college. And the advantage we get from going to CEGEP for 2 years is that we don't have year 1 any longer in normal college. We only do 3 years of college. So foreigners outside of Quebec, even Canadians who come to McGill, which is like our Ivy League, and it is an actual Ivy League. Ivy League was a football league, by the way. I don't know if anyone knows that. The Ivy League in America, Columbia, Dartmouth, which is not too far from here, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, UPenn, right? That was a football league. And the college in Montreal was part of it. It's a college football league. And that's why it's the Ivy League, because it was a college football league. And so it's an English college, great college. People who come from out of state, in our case, right? Americans, a lot of Americans go to Ivy League there because it's cheaper, and Canadians go to college there. They have a 4-year college degree, just like everyone else in North America. It's a 4-year degree. We only have to do 3 years because of college. Now, I did my college in science. So what it amounted to was a first year of college experience, but in all the sciences, chemistry, physics, math, geology, whatever, right? All of them at once. And so when you go to any college in the world after, or in North America, you get year 1 canceled. You get credit for it, and in numerous ways. You get all kinds of credit. So that's what I would love. That's what I would love reparations to be. A school system that is so, and so here's the great thing about the junior college. There's no attendance. You have a major. It's the same schedule, as you could say, as college. It's midterms and finals, maybe an essay if that's the kind of class you're in. But it's the same format as college. No one's going to wipe your butt. No one is there to help you. You're on your own now. You're an adult. You're 17, but you're an adult. And I had to have my own apartment at that age. I had my own apartment in downtown Montreal when I was 16 to go to that college. And so really great system to grow and have experience and do all kinds of things. From there, I was able to go to my college in Waterloo, Ontario. Then I went to college in France. Then I went to college in Quebec City, where I went to law school. So Muslim Bitcoiner. In other words, your focus would be 100% to attack the education system. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. So I was a teacher for years after that, right? I was a teacher when I finished college and before I went to law school. I became a high school substitute teacher, but I also went to South Korea and taught for 2 years, and learned a lot about teaching. And then when I was a law student, I continued to be a substitute high school teacher in the Quebec system. And I actually tried to create and I'm going to replicate it here in Vermont. It's one of the things I'm going to do here as we push forward. I created, so this is a crazy story, but it's true. In 2012, just as I was learning about Bitcoin, actually, believe it or not, a friend of mine murdered another friend of mine here in Quebec. One of these stupid drug, blah, 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 shithead stuff, right? Just terrible shithead stuff. Now, it was weird because where I grew up is actually, incredibly wealthy and very beautiful. It's the Green Mountains that spill into Quebec. It's an hour outside of Montreal. It's sort of filled with that's how I learned about all this Laurentian elite stuff. They all live in my town. My mother was like a waitress in the local town, and I worked as a dishwasher from 12 years old on, and had to work my whole life because we just weren't a rich family in this world. But it didn't matter. Canada is still very upwardly mobile. No one would give you a hard time for coming from a poor family, and everyone is there to help, right? For real. Conservatives more. I had a lot of help from conservative people in that environment, from working in country clubs, and they would pay for my education and all kinds of stuff. It was really generous, right? I always appreciated these folks. And I learned a lot about the world, especially liberals and conservatives at that age, just seeing who was willing to help a poor kid get ahead in life. It was enough, the liberals were the ones, you can't play on the tennis court if you work here, you just wash the dishes and shut your mouth. The conservatives would be like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, he finished his tough day, he can go and play that, right? Happy Turkey Day, Hammersaw. So that's what I think it should be. So I'll finish the story about the murder and all that stuff, because it's a crazy story. Just a garbage story, right? Just a garbage story. But what it made me think was, here's the sad part of the education system I just described. It's great for French people, but English people who don't live near one of these colleges, you had to do what I did, which is, like I said, move to Montreal when you're 16 years old and get your own place, have a job, pay your bills. I had a rent, I had everything. Montreal's cheap, so don't worry too much. I think then I was paying like under $200 a month for a big, room in an apartment with friends. I think the whole bill for the 3-bedroom, 2 living room apartment with 2 porches on a park in downtown was $500 a month. Crazy. Still cheap, Montreal. Always been cheap. Don't know why. Well, I know why, but it's complicated. So this guy killed the other guy, and what it made me realize all at once, very quickly. And by the way, I had just run for the Congress in my area. I'd run for the National Congress, I'd run to be a congressman in my hometown. And it was sort of it was not, I was not a favor to win or anything like that. I thought the system was going to break and maybe we would win, but I had to do it. That's what gave me the right to work on the banking committee and have sort of the ability to direct senators, I guess you could say, right? The only way you can do that is to be public and actually have a candidacy. But I got killed, right? I got smashed. But it was in my hometown. Everyone knew me. It was fun to do. I was pretty young. I had a great time. I was just out of law school. It's what gave me the chance to do all these things in politics. But I learned some troubling truths when I ran. And this was one of them. I just learned that half of the boys in my area don't finish high school, the English boys. Because why? You can go mow lawn. There's enough rich people around that there's so much low-skilled labor available that you just do it, right? You can mow lawn, you could clean tennis courts, clean pools. So many rich people, right? Really, it's like the Martha's Vineyard or the Hamptons of Canada, because like I said, 1 hour outside of Montreal, skiing, lakes, no bugs, really great weather, perfect summer weather, perfect winter weather for what you're looking for, and just gorgeous restaurants, farms, you name it, right? It's perfect. No traffic, great life, great quality of life, excellent. But what happened was these folks, like my friends, not everyone could do what I did. at 16, move alone, go to college, manage yourself, have a job. Some people just stay. And like I said, over half the boys drop out of high school because there are these low skilled labor jobs. And then you bring the drugs in, right? So I said, well, we got to think of a way out of this when the murder happened. And my solution was the following. I went to a local college that's about an hour away, and I said, you should make a satellite campus in my town, and here's the curriculum. The curriculum was the following. We're going to do event management, and the kids will actually do it experientially. They'll go through the year and do every piece of an event, like logistics, food and beverage, marketing, right? They would just take turns. We were going to take all the kids from the area that do the normal sports days, bring them to my village. The village is amazing. It's in a little valley with a waterfall in the middle. I mean, like really, really crazy nice. We were gonna do this whole thing. So I went with the local college. Remember, I explained this whole college system. I knew a college president and gave him the plan and told him about the murder and what I wanted to do and why I thought this would work. And the idea was it would bring people to town and it would create a whole class of people that had now professional skills for an industry that was leveling up, which is events, marathons, bike rides, whatever. My partner, who knew the victim as well, just as I did, and was the best man at my wedding and one of my best friends, he is a professional event organizer. He did all of the ski events at the Vancouver Olympics, the whole sailing regatta at the London Olympics. He does major events, right? His dad was a very successful senator. He is one of these guys that just is full of skill, full of ability. He's one of these people that did the same move as I did. Cégep, no problems, successful, life's great. We're still really close and really friendly. And my best man, obviously. So him and I came up with this plan to create a school to do events so that the people could get a college degree, stay home, but also have something that was commercially viable for the area, right? The college agreed with us. They said, let's do it, right? They put resources. My friend and I did the whole application. We created the degree, right? We created a fresh degree out of this. It was like a 100-page application. We filled it out. We went to the Quebec government and presented it and got accreditation. They created a degree out of it. But here's the rug pull they did on me. And this is where I went on a tirade after and went full Bitcoin. The deal was the school was going to be in our village because the point was I didn't want people moving and I wanted the school itself to attract people to town. I made a deal with them that they would put me on their board so that I could take possession of donated land and buildings, right? There was a bunch of out of business places in town, as every town, no more shopping really, and restaurants changing just because of the internet. But it's still a beautiful like commercial buildings in a gorgeous town. And people would have given me the land. I have a great reputation in my town. I had just run in politics. It was not hard for someone to donate, land that there was no interest in buying, and a house there was no interest in buying, and physical buildings there were no interest in buying, things I could use for the school. So the deal was, we do the application, we get you this school. It's going to be great for your brand, great for everybody, but you give me a seat on the board so I can take possession of the physical property and give tax receipts, because no one's going to give it to me without a tax receipt. They're not just going to donate it for nothing at all, right? They want something. And they rug pulled me. We get the degree, right? We create it, and then they go, no, this is coming to our campus. We can't do the satellite campus, and you're not going to be on the board. And I was like, excuse me, why? I just did all this work. The deal was simple. Like, you give me the seat, I take the land, and it's in your name. I'm not taking it in my name. I need a nonprofit to be able to take possession and give a tax receipt. I can't do that. So they rug pulled me. And now they offer the course exactly as I created it, but in some shit town an hour away that did nothing for my village. So my new plan is, with that same partner who does the events, we're going to get a piece of land here in the Vermont side, and we're going to sell e-bikes, and we're going to do events, but just the e-bike business. And we're going to run the business as an education incubator. We're not even going to bother with the degrees anymore. I thought I needed the credential 10 years ago when I did this, right? The credential seemed important. You need a degree from this college. I don't give a shit anymore. Like that Harvard story. They can all fuck off. I don't care. I don't want the degree. We're doing the school. It's going to be an event school. I'm doing it in the American side because the Canadians are too stupid, and they can all F off. That's what we're doing. So Muslim Bitcoiner, yeah, I would be probably focused on education. Probably that would probably be where I'm at, and in the end, I am. I often make the frame that what I do in the industry with the events is us taking the slack from the normal education system that can't handle Bitcoin. It's too much for them. It breaks it every time, right? They gotta put it in their education buckets. This is Wall Street. This is that. It's none of those things. And the more they try and do that, the more they ruin it and turn it into some crypto thing. And even, Bitcoin Magazine tweeted out this morning the Harvard study on central banks buying Bitcoin. We talked about it in this show a week ago or whatever it was, a long time ago, and we said, it basically just falls in the bell curve. Maybe you should get some Bayesian whatever in the middle, right? Who cares? We just want to have an events operation here. We're going to be selling e-bikes. We're going to be doing e-bike races, e-bike time trials. People making their own e-bikes, right? That's really what I want to promote. I think the cottage industry of building bikes and e-bikes is a big thing. Far fewer parts, easy to build again. So that's what I'd be doing, education. And that's what I'm doing. Events are education, right? The Bitcoin Magazine event, for example, is more like a university experience than a conference. It's just shrunk into a few days. But you should, when I design these things, I am trying to give you the same feeling of a whole year in university. It should be as valuable as a year in university. The friendships, the meeting people, what you learn, right? What the new lesson is this year. I try to be very conscious of all these things, and that's what I design for. I don't put that in marketing and messaging. It's boring to convince people that they're going to school. It's just what I designed to. I designed to this being a college experience, and we're all going to college together. We all go to the Bitcoin college is kind of how I frame it. So that's what's up. All right, team. Wrench gang. Happy Turkey Day. Happy that, guys. Yeah, the education system is real bad. It's terrible. It's child abuse. It's not even bad. It's child abuse. It's child abuse. Two things. A few days ago, I said, I have a farm. I don't think anyone needs a farm to deal with chaos. I have the farm in order to speak publicly and not worry about getting canceled. If you want to speak publicly, you probably need a farm at this point. But I'm not worried about cancellation as much as I used to be with Elon, where he's at. I used to be very worried about cancellation. That's why I rarely did so many public things. I was very, very, less interested in regular public talking because dangers were there. Controlled talks about Bitcoin, I had no problem with. Go on the news, go on this, do that. But free form like this, because you never know what they're going to do, and then you're done. So I can do it now. Primarily Elon, but also I don't care about getting canceled. Like it wouldn't kill me, right? So I don't think anyone personally needs a farm unless you want to speak publicly about this stuff. So I didn't want to make anyone feel like if they didn't have a farm. And it's the same with education, right? So when I say it's child abuse, there's still things they learn at school, and it's not like that for everyone. There's still a way to have a kid who's not getting abused if they go to public school. So I don't mean to say that if you do it, you're committing child abuse. It's not that, right? But in certain conditions, if you have the option, it's much better to get your kids out of that environment, I think. Because there's two ways it can go, right? Survival in that environment is tough, and it doesn't mean they're going to get bullied, but being a bully can be just as bad. And so you gotta be conscious of all these things. And anyway, it's our job as parents to raise our kids. I don't know why we decided it was this thing you could outsource. It doesn't work. I got family members that Hybrid Bitcoinization podcast says schools are government operated. They are not under the forces of the free market. Yeah, they're no nature, real bad. Bless the internet, absolutely. And you see that now. The people reacting. Here's Corey DeAngelis. He brought the receipts. Let me just show you. I didn't get to this today because I just skipped it. But here's what's going on. The same things you guys are seeing. The same thing you guys are seeing with the fake news falling apart in its coverage of SBF is happening in education right now in America. So just understand that the same amount of orange pilling going on for crypto lefties who still read the New York Times and Kara Swisher, right? That is happening right now in education. So Randy Weingarten, who we bring up a lot, is trying to make the argument now, 2 years later, that she never shut schools down for COVID. She's trying to say that she, the head of the teachers union, never shut schools down, right? So this is her actual quote from, and we remember, we always follow Corey DeAngelis here. We want Corey DeAngelis at our event in Miami in May, 100%. Here's what she says. It makes people more alone and more isolated, which is part of the reason opening schools was so important. Bring back the relationships, bring people together so that people can see that, you know, they're not just looking at their devices. So Corey DeAngelis brings the receipts, which are the news headlines of everything the teachers union said about closing schools during the COVID. I can't even read them all, but here they are. The push to reopen schools is rooted in sexism, racism, and misogyny. This is from them. Chicago Teachers Union leader is blasted for pushing to keep schools closed because classrooms are unsafe while she vacations in Puerto Rico. Teachers unions want their wealth taxes, charter school bans, and Medicare for all before schools can reopen. So that's hostage taking. Powerful teachers union influence CDC on school reopenings, emails show. Teachers union threatens safety strikes before Biden speech. White House considered teachers union labor disputes before releasing reopening guidance. School reopenings linked to union influence and politics, not safety. School closure have been made with politics in mind, not science. Teachers unions sue Florida governor to block reopening of schools. Donations from teachers unions spiked as Congress debating school reopening, virus relief. He kept them all. And they're trying to pull this shit that they weren't behind it. It's the same thing that's happening with SBF in education, right? So 100%, the Bitcoin fight is tied to the destruction of the teachers union and the opening up of American education to more forces than the public system. Because the public system, exactly, it can only be government propaganda. It can't, even if they have the best intentions, it's a top-down system. It's a top-down system, and when everyone starts correcting Randy Weirgarden, who says, we love our kids, they're not your kids, and you don't know what's best for them, right? They're not your kids, and you don't know what's best for them. And I guess, let me just tie it all together now to what I was saying about Bitcoin and what we have to do and how we have one more step. So I'm a big fan of charter schools. The problem with charter schools, and this is the brainwashing that I shed as a result of George Floyd. You know, I did take time in the George, I had no choice. I was in Brooklyn and my whole neighborhood was burning. I lived in Bed-Stuy. Bed-Stuy was attacked during the summer of 2020 and there was nowhere to go. Like, you just had to sit around and listen to the chaos and the fires and the burning. And so I thought long and hard and I found out one thing, not that, the George Floyd, whatever, forget about the politics of it for a second. What I found out was the following. With introspection, found where I had been tricked by conservatives and Republicans in this formula. And here's where it is. And now I know better. So when we say, the charter school versus the public school, the whole point of the charter school is to make the parent the customer again, right? Instead of in the case of the public schools, right now, the government is the client. They're the customer. They're the one paying. Follow the money. They're the one paying, right? If the public system is paying with taxes, they're the client that the school boards are trying to impress, right? So they're advertising to them, they're reporting to them, they get their money from them. In the charter school, it flips it and makes the parent the client again, right? The parent is now the client. Much better system, much better, right? Parents as clients can help a lot in our education system, like 99% better than the government as the client, 99% better. But, and this is the brainwashing part, all this shit conservatives say about Black families and Black people and what they need to do to get better and how they need to fix their culture. Their culture has problems, right? Which is why I support Kanye West's manipulation of attention and the Jewish question in order to focus the energy on the African-American community, because it is an unhealthy community. We have to be able to say that out loud, right? It is an unhealthy, lots of white communities, super unhealthy, right? Especially poor ones, rich ones too, all these outsourcing of education. So I'm not saying they're uniquely unhealthy. They are just unhealthy in their own way. And the pablum conservatives are fed and the talking points they're fed, the ones that I even believed were that, if African-American families would just be stronger, this would all go away, right? If the dad would be around more, that's what we need to focus on, right? We need to focus on marriage numbers and keeping family units together in the African-American population, then they won't have any trouble with education, right? All of it is true, right? I don't deny it's true, but that's why it's such an insidious lie, right? The truth about it makes it insidious. It's not a solution. It just makes the problem go away in your mind. It doesn't fix anyone's education. What are we going to do to all these kids who can't get education? Are their parents going to suddenly come around and help them? Is the dad just going to come back? The mom's just going to be good again? No. So a charter school can fix a lot, right? It can fix a lot. But the next step is to have something like what I described as reparations, or a system that even takes the kids who don't have parents watching out for them the way we would all like parents to watch out. Of course, it's better. Of course, two parents, everyone at home, you're the client, you help your kids find education. Of course, that's the best, but it's not an option. It's not an option. You don't get to choose that. A huge portion of the population will never get to choose that. They don't have parents that are in any circumstances going to be their advocate for education. So we need a system there. We've got to actually follow the money down to the point where the child is the client. We're not there yet. Bitcoin can get us there, because if we do think about our communities, right, to make the child the client, it's really just having things that the kid will be able to go to on their own and choose to go to themselves. And that means parks that are well maintained with people there to teach you stuff, that are community driven, that have a center point, a focal point where people come and meet and information is shared. And that's the kind of education that Bitcoiners already espouse, right? We are a P2P education system. We help people learn one-on-one. We don't need family relations in order to help you become financially literate, energy literate, and to go down the rabbit hole. That's the future of education. The future of education is community-minded, the way Bitcoiners are community-minded in education, right? The way we go out of our way to help someone not be stupid and to open their eyes is what the future of education is. Charter is, I do not want to ever argue that I don't support charter. Way more interested in teachers being the clients in education than the government being the client. But it's not the end of the story. If we do create something like reparations in America, it must be this P2P education network that anyone can access and that anyone can fix their life. In the same way that I just said, I don't know if I'd be here if I didn't have good public institutions that helped me get educated in the time that I was educated, when it still worked in the 80s and 90s in Quebec. Common culture, very easy to learn, everyone looking out for me, everyone inviting me, everyone gathering, bringing me in. Excellent system. Not really like that anymore because of the changes in society, but nevertheless, the start of what we should build, and a really good direction to head into. So let's be thankful for education. The Fiat Institutes, this is from Hyper Bitcoinization Podcast. The Fiat Institutes are totally toast. The only way they're keeping it going is propaganda and force. That's exactly it. And some like tender laws, monopoly by coercion. And then he says, such a waste of our resources. Can you imagine when Bitcoin has wiped out all the inefficiencies? And that's it, right? That is exactly what we're talking about here. The education system, look at what's happening in China right now. They had we talked about it yesterday, they've had one COVID death since May, and it's lockdown, total lockdown. You see those videos of the Foxconn workers running out of the place and people coming to smash them and put them back in their cages, right? Look, it ain't COVID over there. It ain't COVID. The economy is screwed. Xi knows what the demographics are. There's one pivot. It's not economic growth anymore. It's full-on authoritarianism. That's what they're at. That's where they're at now. And it's only through those coercive things. That's why I continue to believe that the symbiosis of the average Chinese coolie and the average American deplorable have to get into Bitcoin, because that's how we'll win, right? This is our natural audience. All right, team, I got to get to smoking a turkey. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. See you tomorrow. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate it.